So, no marketing talk this week. Let's start with the calls to action first, because these are the most important. If you want to help Ukraine militarily, the National Bank of Ukraine has a special fund set up to help support the Ukraine Armed Forces. Instructions for donations are in the newsletter. You will need some background on how to do SWIFT transfers. It doesn't take long, but it does take a wire transfer service. So if you've used one of those before, it should be pretty straightforward. This program, the National Bank of Ukraine, I chose to donate to mainly because it's one of the few institutions I was easily able to verify was totally legit. If you want to help Ukraine non-militarily, the Red Cross and Red Crescent of Ukraine is in urgent need of donations for helping the injured. So, what else can you do to help Ukraine? Well, if you live in a nation where your government officials are elected and listen to the people, contact your elected officials and urge the strongest financial sanctions against the Putin government, including the removal of the Russian government from the SWIFT financial system. And keep doing it regularly. Contact your representatives daily. If you have friends or colleagues who are affected by the invasion, be sure to check in on them and offer your support. And if you have a platform of any size, from 50 Twitter followers to millions of YouTube or Twitch subscribers, please help spread the word about the ways we can help. Go do these things first. Okay, you're back? Did them? Great. The rest of this newsletter is political in nature, so feel free to skip this week if that's not your thing, or if it's really not your thing, unsubscribe. It's fine. I totally get it. Now, where do you get reliable information about the invasion? The top account on Twitter that I've been following for vetted, fact-checked, reliable information is the UK Ministry of Defence. They've been publishing regular updates since the start of the invasion, and it's been a great source of information that someone with expertise has validated. Other accounts worth following include Elint News, former U.S. intelligence officer Bob Gourley's Twitter list, and Ukraine President Zelensky's personal Twitter. So, why do I care about all this? Why are we interrupting a week of a marketing newsletter? Well, the reason I care about Ukraine and the invasion by the Putin government is more than just because it's morally repugnant, although, frankly, that's reason enough, right? But for me personally, it all started with one of my guiltless pleasures, watching the international singing competition show, The Voice. Now, I enjoy seeing variants of this show from all around the world. And you can even get a hint of a nation's character from the contestants and the judges. One of the versions that has always caught my ear, both for talent and character, was Ukraine's edition. I started following the various very entertaining judges and contestants, people like Potap and Tina Karol, Dan Balan, who I think is actually Moldovan, Elena Ivashenko. And over the years, that made me more and more curious about Ukraine as a nation and its people and its culture. The power of AI and translation software meant that previously inaccessible content and culture was understandable to me. Then I learned that actually a fair number of people in our field, marketing, have strong Ukrainian roots as well. Ahrefs, the SEO tool, started in Ukraine. Most of their staff is still Ukrainian. OWAX, the business intelligence tool, is Ukrainian. Grammarly, the software that tells you how badly you write, is Ukrainian. I've gotten to know and become friends with people from Ukraine at these companies and in general. One of my neighbors across the street is from Cherkasy on the Dnieper River. So for me, Ukraine isn't an abstract concept or a place on a map. It's represented by real people that I know, I interact with, that I value in my life. When the invasion began, I found myself messaging Ukrainian friends and colleagues on LinkedIn and Instagram and Slack. Some replied they were safe. Some I haven't heard from yet. I hope I do. So, again, one shouldn't need that level of personal involvement to care about Putin's blatant violation of international law any more than we should need to know the victim of a mugging in order to be outraged that a criminal committed a crime. But that's what makes me much more emotionally involved, invested in this particular instance, and why I'm so avidly in support of Ukraine's fight to defend itself. Now, why should you care? Well, two reasons. First, left unchecked, Putin will not stop at Ukraine. He has made no secret of the fact that he wants to restore the borders of the Soviet Union, wind the clock back to 1991. That's bad for Europe and the global economy. Also, the last time we heard about a tyrant demanding buffer space, it was called Lebensraum, and it was 1938. We didn't step in soon enough back then as a global coalition. We need to not make the same mistake again. For those whose motto has been never again, that's now. This guy, Vladimir Putin, must be stopped by any means necessary. Second, Putin and his government has been responsible for and has had a hand in destabilizing many nations over the past 2 decades, from Brexit to COVID and vaccine disinformation, which was basically biological warfare against nations like my own, just without an actual German play, to Cambridge Analytica and election interference, to funding hacking groups, attacking businesses and governments around the world, including ours, right? U.S. Senator Mitt Romney famously and correctly said that Putin's government remains the greatest geopolitical threat of modern times, and containing Putin and his regime should be a global priority. So please join me in taking action to support Ukraine through the links in the email, and for spreading the word about the ways people can help. Now, final word about Russia. An important distinction in this conflict is that 100% of the blame, fault, anger, and punishment should be directed at the government of Vladimir Putin and the man himself, including his oligarch buddies. The Putin government is not freely elected, even though they say they are. They're not. And does not represent or speak for a substantial number of Russian citizens, as evidenced by the mass protests in major Russian cities of people calling for no to war. Don't confuse the two. Many, many Russian people, including some of our colleagues and friends, vehemently oppose the invasion of Ukraine, and if they had the ability to force their government to withdraw, they would. They can't. It's not a freely elected government, and people who've been protesting have been arrested by the thousands and stuff, and who knows if we will ever see them again. So be clear, when you're talking about the invasion, that is the Russian government or the Putin government at fault, not the Russian people as a whole. That's it for this week's newsletter. Like I said at the beginning, no marketing talk this week. I hope you have a chance to help in some way. There's plenty of opportunities. And I will talk to you next week. Take care.